In the 4 years since we met, neither of us had truly acted on our mutual attraction. Talked about it, yes. Succumbed to it? No. Sure, there had been flirtations here and there, but it never went further. More than once we'd agreed a relationship between us was inappropriate, given I was her boss, then eventually her boss's boss. A couple of times I'd initiated the conversation. Once or twice she did. However, no amount of denial, resolve, or statement of impropriety had changed how much I wanted her. At one point, I convinced myself out of sight, out of mind was the best course of action. However, it had only resulted in absence making my heart grow fonder. And while, in this day and age, others felt no shame in crossing those lines, I couldn't. If it meant I'd lose the chance to know her better when she found another man who wasn't bound by duty in the way I was, I'd have to live with it. Or so I used to think. That all changed today, when I picked up my phone, called the man I reported to, and resigned from my position with SIS, His Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service. As soon as that call ended, I walked out of my office, down the hall to hers, and knocked. "Come in," she said, her eyes widening when she looked up at me. "I've resigned," I blurted. George raised her brow and studied me. "Have you?" I nodded. "Effective immediately." She sat back in her chair and folded her arms. "Now what?" "I was wondering if you'd like to celebrate over dinner tonight. With me." George smiled. "I suppose it wouldn't be much of a celebration if you weren't there. Is there a group gathering?" "No, forgive my interruption, but this celebration has nothing to do with work." I cleared my throat. "I'm asking you on a date, George." It dawned on me that she might turn me down. Perhaps she'd run out of patience with me years ago. I let out the breath I'd been holding when I heard her say, "I accept." Now, 5 hours later, I was on my way to pick her up. I had quite an evening planned for us. First, dinner at her favourite Indian restaurant, which just so happened to be my favourite as well. Afterwards, I intended to invite her back to my townhouse for an after-dinner cocktail, or, if she preferred, her place. Either way, now that I'd decided to pursue her, I wanted George to know it would be full throttle, as they say. I wanted her in my life, and in my bed, starting tonight. I looked out the window and saw the car service I'd hired pull up. After grabbing my overcoat, I took one last look in the mirror. "Do not talk yourself out of this," I said to my reflection. After locking up behind me, I walked down the steps to the car, checking the time on my mobile. "Park, what are you doing here?" I asked when I saw him waiting in the back seat. "Hello, Z," he responded once I was inside with the door closed. I looked down and saw he had a gun pointed at me. "What in the bloody hell is the meaning of this?" "I need your help with something." "For God's sake, Puck, all you had to do was ask. This, I motioned to the gun, "is not necessary. I insist you explain yourself immediately, followed by exiting the vehicle. I have a previous and urgent engagement." "Afraid that won't be possible, sir." "Agent Lindstrom, I demand you lower your weapon." Before I finished my sentence, the car sped off. "Now, hand over your weapons and your mobile. I'd rather not, but if you force me, I will kill you, Z." I stared down the barrel of his gun, knowing I had no choice but to do as he said, or prepare to die.
There was simply no way I could have gotten the time wrong. I was a bloody MI5 agent, for God's sake. More, I'd spent the last 4 years waiting, wishing, hoping for this day, or night, rather, to come. Z and I had danced around each other, so to speak, since the first time we met. When our flirtations felt like they were about to turn into something more, one of us would pull back, remind the other a relationship between us was inappropriate, and for a while, we'd avoid each other. That would last a few days, sometimes longer, until we couldn't stand it anymore and struck up yet another innocent, usually work-related conversation. I paced between my flat's door and the front window, watching for Z's arrival. As of right now, he was 10 minutes late. Z was never late. It was one of many reasons I was attracted to him. Punctuality, professionalism, respectfulness, charm. The thick mop of silver-grey hair I was forever tempted to run my fingers through, perfectly tailored clothes that hugged his broad shoulders and exemplary backside, and bright blue eyes that had sparkled when he finally asked me on a date. The date that was supposed to be taking place right now. I checked my mobile. Another 5 minutes had passed, and I hadn't received a message from him explaining his delay. There was no way I'd accept he'd merely changed his mind. After all, the date was one impetus for his decision to resign as chief of MI6, Military Intelligence, Section 6. I'd never seen the man as giddy as he was earlier when he'd sauntered into my office, leaned forward, and rested his hands on my desk, then told me he'd resigned. I'd raised a brow. When he added that it was effective immediately, I'd asked what was next for him, fighting against my temptation to jump up, throw my arms around him, and kiss him the way I'd wanted to almost from the moment we met. I was wondering if you'd like to celebrate over dinner tonight, with me. Is there a group gathering? When he clarified it was a date, I immediately accepted. I'd agreed without a moment's hesitation, and yet, here I was, waiting on the man again.